Look, I know it was a few years ago now since Ori and the Blind Forest was released, but I've only just recovered from ugly crying from the incredibly emotional experience that the award-winning release delivered. I'll never forget that soulful journey that the game took me on, and the Will of the Wisps does not disappoint. The 2D puzzle adventure game created by first-party developers Moon Studios and published by Microsoft, it's clear for the team that the desire to create a sequel wasn't just about expanding Ori's fantastical world and telling a new story. It was also about improving their craft. Like, how could they make this even better? Will of the Wisps is a direct sequel that was announced over 2 years ago at E3 2017. And currently available on Xbox Game Pass and Steam, we're taken back to Nibel Forest in Naiwen and play as the lovable protagonist Ori, the White Guardian Spirit. Get ready to embark on an all-new adventure where you'll encounter enemies and navigate challenging puzzles, and I do mean challenging, on your quest to unravel Ori's true destiny. I really don't want to spoil the story too much, because isn't that one of the best parts? You know, if you're like me, being naturally talented at 2D platforming games it does not come naturally to you, or perhaps you missed the first game, Ori and the Blind Forest, then firstly, go back and play the first one, but never fear. There are difficulty settings for normies and hardcore achievement hunting perfectionists. In fact, the further you get into Will of the Wisps, the more rage-inducing it gets. Definitely a lot of moments for me where I had to pull the controller down to play, and especially those boss fights, man. Essentially, Ori can jump, climb to new heights, and use other abilities to navigate throughout the incredibly diverse, twisty and turny forest. You basically start with nothing and gradually gain skills as you explore, and gain up to 12 abilities, 3 of which can be equipped at once. Jumping accurately and climbing at precise times is absolutely critical, and I'm constantly reminded about how bad at jumping I am. Will of the Wisps also adds things like spirit trials and combat shrines. Spirit trials have you race other players competing for a spot on the leaderboards. Combat shrines spawn waves of enemies that you must survive. Also, this time around, not everything in the game is trying to hurt you. Along the way, you'll meet characters that constantly give you side quests. Ori and the Will of the Wisps offers more variety to the map, the foes, the friends, and the bosses. There's also more complexity to its mechanics. Keystones, life orbs, and energy orbs are back again. Restore Ori's life and energy when you undoubtedly die 1,000 deaths and take damage throughout your journey. The godlike music is almost spiritual for all the feels, and the sound effects as you jump on different textured surfaces are super immersive. Even the lightning and thunder is mind-blowing. The noticeable differences from the first game are first and foremost, despite being a 2D game, the character models are actually 3D this time around. This allowed the designers to create a greater array of movement in the animations, which was really important it was clear the new focus was fast-paced combat. The environment has incredible depth and breathtaking landscape visuals, with monsters lurking ominously in the background and stunning attention to detail on all the foreground elements. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is an ambitious sequel that is actually just not, if not more impressive than the last. It's one of the most visually stunning games I've ever seen. It's a hard game to master, and I'll never appreciate so many autosave points before. Once you get the hang of it, it's one of the most rewarding and breathtaking journeys that's available in the platforming genre.
Well, despite the gross intro, Megan, I've decided to bring you back on to discuss Ori. And what's this one? Ori and the Blind Forest.
No, actually.
No.
Will of the Wisps.
Will of the Wisps.
Please.
Right, Blind Forest was the first one.
Did you listen to my review?
I did, but not well enough. Because you got to understand, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Ori. And when I say love-hate, I mean just mainly hate. Because my big issue with it was in the first one, as much as it was, and it was very pretty and it was very evocative and there was a lot of emotion behind it, the way the story wraps up, it just kind of negates everything. And that kind of dragged me out of it.
I disagree. I think that the parts of the game that were good, that you think are still good, are not negated by the ending. The ending, sure, is not a great ending, but the rest of the game is still solid.
It's still fun, yeah.
They definitely took that on board, but my love-hate relationship with it is because I suck at platforming games. And it was like unrelentlessly tough. As I progressed, even in this game, it was savage and it made me feel like crap a lot.
Because the new one takes a little bit, it's almost borderline Hollow Knight. Like it's got a lot more combat, a lot more,
Will of the Wisps focuses mostly this time on combat and the complex mechanics behind the skill-based system and the passive skills. So instead of it being a really simple pick up and play platforming game, which Blind Forest absolutely was, this adds lots of layers. Like
It's a gamey game. It's more
a gamey game, and it's really out there for the perfectionists, people that want to, speed run through it. And there's actually, I think there's like a petition out there to bring it onto Switch already. People are frothing for it. It's definitely a
there's a precedent.
And that is the thing. So let's be real. I mean, so Cuphead obviously is on Switch. Phil Spencer's already said, "Hey, we're bros, man. Like, there's no beef here."
Totally.
And
Word for word.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't be surprised because it is a Switch game, like for all intents and purposes.
Well, actually, Jack and I saw it at PAX. Was it PAX?
No, it was. I
saw it at PAX.
What's the sponsored by JB Hi-Fi one?
MEO.
MEO. That was in not 2019 or even 18. Oh, maybe it was 18.
It was 18.
MEO
It's only been off 2 years,
So we saw it like. Was that 2 years ago, basically?
Yeah.
And it was hot garbage.
It was
polished. Not polished.
Yeah.
And the combat felt really weird. Probably feels a bit better in final game.
I think the frame rate was a bit average, and to be honest, when I
Yeah.
first saw it and first heard it was announced, I was like, what's it going to be more special than the first one? Is it just going to be a carbon copy? And I definitely think they've perfected it. I think there's a lot of value in this sequel, and I cried a whole bunch of times. I'm definitely not going to lie about that. It had all the feels and all the right times.
Because that is the question. Because when BioShock 1 has a very similar thing. BioShock 1 was such an experience, and that last bit of the game was actually bad. Like the gameplay itself wasn't great, and the ending was awful. BioShock 2 was a better game, but a kind of a lesser story. And it seems to me that's kind of Will of the Wisp. But it seems to me like you at least got what you wanted out of the story.
That's correct. There was a lot of twists and turns. The story really delivered for me. I didn't actually mind it.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, what about you, Jackie boy? Are you going to play it now, or?
I mean, I think I'm going to do the cheeky get Xbox Live Gold into Ultimate to be able to get it.
Yeah.
Hashtag not sponsored content.
Absolutely not.
The Game Pass is so worth it.
I wish,
Don't say it too loud. They'll make you redo a take.
Dude, I wish we got money for this. But I'm keen to check it out, not necessarily because I'm like, I'm going to love it as much as the first one. If I wanted to do that, I'd just go back and play the first one. Because the Definitive Edition on PC actually added a bunch of content as well.
Right,
so that would actually be something new to me as well.
Yeah.
It's also been ages since the last game. So
5
that would be
years.
worth getting into. But if anything, I'm keen to check it out, kind of like with Animal Crossing, change my mind. And yeah, not necessarily be as invested in, but just because I'm curious.
Yeah. To be honest, it was like one of the more complex 2D platforming side-scroller games just due to the depth of the story and the combat itself.
There you go. Well, don't forget, Game Pass is great, and that's basically the takeaway from everything we've just said.